Good evening, everybody. Happy holiday season to you all. It is Monday night when, as I'm recording this, December 23rd, the Colorado Avalanche have just defeated the Las Vegas Golden Knights once again by a big score of 7-3. And this is the latest edition of the Burgundy Brigade podcast, solo edition tonight. It's been a while since we've gotten something out here, and I wanted to make sure we took a minute to, at very least, record a little something here and put it out into the Avs Twitterverse for the holiday season. So once again, a very happy holiday season to everybody here. If you are celebrating Christmas very soon, as I will be, Merry Christmas to you. If not, then obviously, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Yule, whatever you happen to be celebrating. We hope you have a fantastic and safe time surrounded by a lot of family, friends, and Colorado Avalanche wins, most importantly. There's a lot to talk about, obviously, since we last podcasted. And again, sorry for not having my general cohorts with me. Aaron's computer is not available this evening, and it's Callie, of course, has been very, very busy working on her journalism school things. We wish her the very best with that. She's doing fantastically. If you're not seeing her pictures and things that she's taking and reading all of her stuff, even though it does say it's from the Fan, if it's a hockey thing, chances are good that Callie is the one writing it, so make sure that you're giving that a click and supporting her. And supporting, actual hockey knowledge coming out of the Fan. That is a big step. So you're stuck with me tonight. The sultry sounds of my voice. It's been a while since I've flown solo. Last time was when we were actually doing some radio stuff back in Denver, and I had to hold down a 2-hour radio show by myself. So it's been a minute since I've had to deal with that. But I've reached out a bit to some of the Avalanche faithful on the Avs Twitterverse, and I've got some of your comments and questions and feedback coming forward here as well, so that'll take up a good portion of things. And it's been a while since we've talked, so there's plenty to talk about, no doubt. The Colorado Avalanche, when we last left them, had just gone on quite the winning streak to start off the season. And since then, they have continued to play very good hockey. There is little more that you can not much of a better way to describe it other than to say that the Avalanche have been very good. They've taken a lot of people by surprise. There was a lot. I remember seeing a lot of people, a lot of the big kind of national media very early in the season, suddenly watching the Avalanche and seeing the depth that the team has and the skill that was always present with the likes of Nathan MacKinnon and Gabe Landeskog and Mikko Rantanen, of course, but now couple it with many of the new faces that Joe Sakic brought in to improve the team, and the goaltending that has been very solid and the sudden depth that the team possesses. And you've got a contender. And people are suddenly sitting here going, wow, the Avalanche might be my pick out west. Might be my pick to go to the Stanley Cup. Might be my pick to win the Stanley Cup. It's been pretty impressive, pretty nice watching, kind of the national narrative around the Avalanche switching from a team that's lucky to make the playoffs to, wow, this team might be more than just Nathan MacKinnon. They are, oh God, my computer is now slowed down to a massive crawl. Thanks a lot. Perfect timing for that. As I get going here, I'm just trying to get some numbers up for the Avs in front of me here, but computer is not cooperating. They are second place in the Central Division with 49 points. They are among the top in the NHL in goal differential. And this beat down in Vegas tonight certainly is going to help out with that. Give them even more positive notes there. They're 24-11-2, I want to say. 23-11. God, these it's just not coming up quickly here for me. Well, thanks, computer. You suck. Just the most impressive part about it, too, has been the fact that the Avalanche have just been absolutely decimated by injury. They went through November, and it seemed like every single night they played, somebody got hurt. Somebody important got hurt. Obviously, we saw Mikko Rantanen go down in St. Louis. We then had Gabe Landeskog go down. We then saw Matt Calvert, who, yes, is not a top-line player, but is still been very important to this team in what they've done, and the depth and contributions there absolutely has been very important. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare went down for a bit. Then Eric Johnson, Colin Wilson's been out for a very long time. People forget whether or not he still exists, poor guy. And now Cale Makar, of course, is out as well. It's been quite the road of injuries that the Avs have had to deal with. Burakovsky was out for a few games here and there. Kadri missed a couple games in the middle of this. Lots of guys have been missing games, and the Avs still just managed to continue winning. And it's unbelievably impressive that they have just managed to keep it going there. The guys have just been, it's been a next man up sort of mentality. Lots of guys coming up from the AHL to fill in roles. Lots of guys on the big roster that don't play a lot of minutes were getting a lot more minutes, and they had to step up, and they did. They absolutely did. And the team has just continued rolling. 23-11-3. There it is. And you know, it's led them to a place where they're still looking up at St. Louis, but they're only 5 points behind. They've got a game in hand, and they have 3 more games left against the Blues at this point, and all of them are going to be played in Denver. They lost both games played in St. Louis, but the last 3 will be in Denver. And you know, say what you want about the Avs and how they match up against the Blues. The home ice does matter. There is something that matters in that. And the teams that as they go along the rest of the season here, they change and they adapt, and things do not stay the same. So yes, the Avalanche have had issues with the Blues. There's no doubt about that. You absolutely cannot forget about that. But there's no reason to say that's going to be something that's going to stick throughout. Yes, it's something they actually have to prove that they can get over, prove that they can conquer. But again, Calgary owned the Avalanche last year, absolutely beat them down. No chances for the Avs blew so many games against Calgary, and it seemed to be a place where a team that they just wouldn't be able to figure things out. And then they knocked the living daylights out of them in the playoffs. It wasn't even close. Absolutely made short work of them. San Jose, the Avs struggled with the Sharks last year. Struggled in San Jose for a long time. Avs were. We can say, you know, we'll talk. We say whatever you want about that series and whatever you want to say about Game 7. But the Avs were within 1 goal there of sending it to overtime in Game 7. I mean, and they were beating down that door in that Game 7 as well. Say what you want about the moment, about the things, but it was something that it's certainly something that the Avalanche can overcome and can do. They've shown they're able to do it in the past. It's another thing that they certainly will be able to do. And how could I forget? Grubauer was injured as well. Francouz was injured as well. They played games with Adam Werner and Anton Bibeau in net and managed to keep winning in that streak of injuries. The Avs, I mean, have been incredibly resilient, and you've gotta give them a lot of credit for what they've managed to achieve to this point. It hasn't been perfect, obviously. Lately we've seen some issues with the Avalanche, special teams especially. Power play and penalty kill have not been great. Obviously, 2 of the last 3 games, we're not counting Vegas, the Vegas game tonight, kind of ended in some interesting and ugly fashions where the Avs, on the second half of a back-to-back against Carolina, blew a lead late in like the last 3 minutes of the game, allowed 2 goals in a minute and 30, and lost after being up in the third period. Yes, it was the second half of a back-to-back. There was a lot that went into that. Obviously, Jared Bednar shortened his bench on the defensive side very questionably. I guess Zadorov was in a little bit of an arguing match with one of the assistant coaches and got benched the entire third period as a result of it. Situationally, that just isn't smart, in my opinion, from a coach. Knowing, obviously, yes, you don't want a player mouthing off to your coaching staff, but you know you're on the second half of a back-to-back. You know that this is a team that works hard and wears people down, and you know that Zadorov has been your top guy in this stretch of games where Johnson has been down. And even when Johnson's been around, who's been the guy that's been getting the tough matchup? Who's been the guy that's been going against the superstar? Who's gotten the Canes? Who got McDavid? Who got Pasternak? And who did great against all of them? Zadorov. And you're benching him in a really, really difficult time. So you had 6 defensemen in that one. Then they only played Lindholm a minute 4 in the last 10 minutes or so of the game, so you're essentially playing with 4 defensemen. This was also EJ's first game back, so you're essentially playing with 3.5 defensemen at that point, and it's just a bad decision, in my opinion, on that spot. There are ways to there are better ways. Obviously, it's just going back to the well one too many times. Benching Zadorov has worked in terms of discipline and sending the necessary message to Zadorov in the past. Yes, definitely have gotten that. But again, you've just got to understand the situation that you're in. You talk about it to coaches talk about that to their players all the time. Understand the situation, make the smart decision, not the emotional decision, not the quick reaction decision. And Bednar didn't do that. Bednar absolutely didn't do that in that situation. So that's certainly something he has to take a certain amount of accountability for. Chicago, sort of a similar thing as far as the late game collapse. They were up 2 goals in that one. And then just all the goals went in against. Suddenly the team just stopped skating, stopped moving, started looking. Zadorov had been one-on-one with Kane the entire game, and Kane had done nothing. Then suddenly, after a TV timeout, I believe, so not even in a situation where the Avalanche had an icing and were not allowed to change, we had no Zadorov out against Kane and Taves, and wouldn't you know it, they walk straight down the ice and score a goal. I mean, again, that's one of those that the coach is just not aware, or not suddenly just thinking it doesn't matter in that situation. I don't know what the whole thing is there, but not doing what they've been doing the rest of the game, and they pay a price for it. The other thing you got to wonder about with Bednar is his absolute insistence on never, ever calling a timeout. Last season and even the year before, you could kind of understand it a little bit because timeouts were tied to goal challenges. And they're just not this year. You can challenge anything at any time, and if you don't get it, then it's not that you lose your timeout, you get a penalty. So now that excuse doesn't even fly anymore. There's no reason, when you see that your team is obviously reeling and obviously in a situation where they are back against the wall and they have lost control of the game, there's no excuse to not call a timeout. Chicago is a perfect example. Avs were up 3-1, 1 goal against with Kane. Minute later, game is tied. No timeout is called. Why? I do not understand. I absolutely do not understand. Same thing in Carolina. I mean, second half of a back-to-back, you guys are icing the puck left, right, and center. You're only using 4 defensemen. At some point, you gotta use every tool at your disposal to give your guys just a little bit of extra rest. 30 seconds might not seem like a lot, or a minute may not seem like a lot, but to a guy to guys that have been skating hard for 20 some odd minutes a night there, and especially doing that again second time in 2 nights, that makes some difference. There's more oxygen into your lungs and into your bloodstream and into your muscles. They need it. absolutely needed. It didn't happen. So again, I'm not getting to the spot where I'm sitting here saying that Jared Bednar needs to be fired or anything like that. Not by any stretch of the imagination, but there are certainly some times where you look at Bednar and you're just thinking you are not doing everything you could be doing. And I think that's absolutely fair to say. And regardless of whether or not you think he is the team's coach, and he definitely is, and he has earned a certain amount of trust from the fan base, no doubt about that. But that does not mean that where he falls short, he cannot be held accountable. He absolutely should be. Absolutely should be. We want to do that with anybody. So, and Bednar is no different in that case. So that was obviously a big letdown those last couple of games, because those are just points that you looked like you had, that you were at least going to get one, and you walked out of 2 games with 0. 2 games with 4 points possibly on the line there that you could have gotten. Say you even get just the overtime loss out of both games. It's 2 points, and you end up with 0, and that is just not excusable. So this Vegas game this last night here on the 23rd was a big one. Absolutely needed it. Absolutely needed to show themselves that they could still close a team out. And not going to lie, when the Avs got scored on in the beginning of period 3 there, and it went from 5-2 to 5-3, and it was early in the third period, I kind of sat there and went, uh-oh, here we go again. But they managed to recover. They righted the ship. They got it going, and they managed to put the game away. And they did the things that the really good teams do, and they took the 2-goal lead that they had, and they turned it into a 4-goal win. And that, if you think back again, I mean, I hate referring to the glory days and things, but if you think about the glory day teams and even the really, really good teams of the last several years around the NHL, that's what they do. They take a game that's 2-1 or 3-1 in their favor that goes into the third period, and they turn it into a comfortable win. They get their 1 or 2 goals that they need to cushion the lead, and that's when they turn it. That's when they finally manage to sit it down and call it good. Where they put it out of reach before we see them sort of take the foot off the gas. They step on their throats and then stand and watch the team die at the end. And that's the thing that you want to see from the Avs. And tonight they showed that killer instinct. And that's really what you need. So, again, right now, the Avs feeling good, looking good in the standings. 23-11-3, 49 points, second in the Central Division. Putting some distance between themselves and Winnipeg, who is third in the division. And or who was third in the division at the start of the night. I'm not quite sure if that is still the case as I talk to you right now. But they are doing they did what they needed to do tonight, and just got the business done. My goodness. What is this? Oh, standings. That's what I'm looking for, not stats. Standings. Just double checking here. Yep. Winnipeg still in third place with 44 points. Avs now have 5 points between them. And one other thing I got to note for the Avalanche at this point. How about that goal differential? They have a plus 31 goal differential. So after tonight, they are now the top goal differential team in the NHL. Boston is second with plus 30, and the Avs are plus 31. I mean, they've certainly gotten some good fortune in that when their games they've had a few games that when it got out of hand, it got way out of hand. They didn't just win a game, 4-1. They won one 8-1, or they beat Nashville 9-3 or something, 9-3 or 4. They have had a few games like that, so it's a little skewed. But you know what? Goals are goals, and we will take them any day of the week, and we will be happy about it. But looking at the team, one of the things that you got to look at is the improvement that you simply cannot see from this team and think, man alive, this is night and day from a year ago. Is just the depth. And the only person that you can really the person you got to look at for that is Joe Sakic. Joe Sakic, if he does not have GM of the year locked up already, then they're doing their jobs wrong. because he has made this team. He has absolutely built this team into a Stanley Cup contender. This is a team that this year could win a Stanley Cup. That we thought last year had a chance, if things fell right, they could get there. And the moves he made this offseason have paid off in spades. Have been the evaluation you get. I mean, one thing you certainly cannot question with the Avalanche is that their pro scouting team has been unbelievable. Identifying the trades that they want to make to find guys that fit their system and will benefit their system, they have absolutely nailed that in spades. Guys like Nazem Kadri. Let's take a look at him. Now, obviously, he was a victim of circumstance in Toronto. Had some great years in Toronto. Played really well for them. Loved by this team. Loved by his city. Sure, some suspension times here and there. Some occasional questionable decisions. But he's a guy who has always played on the line of... and you need guys like that. You absolutely need guys like that. And... he managed. Joe Sakic gets him in the big Tyson Barrie deal, and Barrie's finally playing well for Toronto, getting some numbers to go his way there. So you got to feel happy for Tice on that. But Kadri has come in and done absolutely everything you would have wanted from him. Once again, my computer is just going to sleep on me completely. Sorry about that. Just trying to pull up guys' numbers, and my computer I had them all up, and now the computer has decided I don't have the numbers up anymore, so I have to kind of improvise a little bit on this. But Kadri has come in and done unbelievably well for the Avalanche. He is, like I said, he had great seasons with the Maple Leafs. He just sort of found a spot where he just didn't have any space left for him, unfortunately. As the team, you bring in guys like John Tavares to play around center, and you got Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and that stuff going. Those guys going for you. I mean, it's just not. No one's going to get in front of those guys, because those are some of the best guys in the game at the moment, obviously. So it just he got sent down to a third line role. He's obviously better than that. There's teams that are going to be interested. We know that he nixed a trade to Calgary at the start of the year during the off season, and the Avs managed to sweep in there and pick him up. He's had finally. I've got my numbers up here again. 11 goals, 11 assists for the Avs. And, this is pretty much what you expect from him. He's a guy that's going to come in, he's going to get 50 to 60 points for you. Perfect 2C numbers. He for a stretch there, he was putting everything in the net. That slowed down a little bit, but he's going to get some numbers for you. He's going to have 25-ish goals for you. You can almost put that right in the bank for you. Solidifies your second line. Defensively responsible guy who can go and really play well against your opposing team's top players and still be a threat offensively. So you're not sitting here playing third or fourth line guys against top players or hoping that the top line can just overpower them. You have that extra piece now in your chess arsenal. He's been fantastic. He's been absolutely fantastic. His Corsi numbers are almost dead even, his possession numbers. And, that's basically what he's been throughout his career. His career average in Corsi, I want to say, if this will let me get to it. Yeah, his career average is 50.3, so he's almost exactly even in Corsi numbers through his career. This year, to this point, he's 49.5. So, again, he's right there. A little under the 50% mark, but that's basically 50%. Again, if you're not super familiar with Corsi, that is a possession statistic that measures the percentage of shots that go towards your opponent's net versus towards your net while you are on the ice. So if you are at 50%, the exact same amount of shots are going to your net as are going to the opponent's net. So you always want to be on the higher side of 50% because that means more pucks are going at your opponents in that case. And Kadri, he's winning face-offs. He's playing well on the penalty kill. He's dangerous in the zones. He's very creative. I don't think people really appreciated exactly how creative Kadri is. Helps on the power play. There's still some people out there that are kind of holding the hatred for him, expecting him to get suspended at some point. And, maybe that'll happen. But again, I don't think you can really look at the game that Nazem Kadri has played since he's come to Colorado and not be happy with it and just not be thrilled with it. If you are looking at Kadri at this point and still going, no, I don't like him, then you just don't like him. And, fine. But at least be honest about it, because he's not a guy that is. I've seen people talking about how he quits on things, and he doesn't. I don't understand where they're getting that. So that's just my 2 cents. Kadri's been fantastic. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, again, you're never my only beef with the idea of Bellemare, and I've said it a few times on the podcast, is just that you're overpaying in free agency for a fourth line center. And yes, overpaying for a fourth line center only means that you're paying like between $1 and $2 million a year. But even so, that's still more money than you want to be playing on that. You want to be using some of your system guys who are on cheaper contracts to do that. No, obviously I know that isn't a crazy expensive contract, and the Avs haven't had to really deal with that yet, but the Avs are going to have to start dealing with that in the coming years here. They're not always going to have Nathan MacKinnon on a super duper mega value of a contract. They're not always going to have Nazem Kadri, who got traded, who was also on a super mega crazy awesome value of a contract. They're not going to have Cale Makar on an ELC for super long. They're not going to have Gabe Landeskog on a team-friendly contract. They're not going to have all these things. At some point, they're going to have to pay their boys. And I know McKinnon said that he's willing to take less on his next deal, but let's be realistic about that. Less for McKinnon is not going to mean that he's going to take like a $9 million a year contract. Nathan MacKinnon is competing very, very, in a very real way with Connor McDavid for the scoring title in the league right now. He's a few points behind, but he's not away from striking distance on this. If McKinnon is able to consistently do that over the next few years, and honestly there's no reason to think that he wouldn't be able to, you're looking at least wanting what McDavid is currently making, and not. It's true he might not go over that. He might be willing to say, I'm not going to sit here and demand that I become the highest paid player in the NHL. But I am not going to sit here and expect that Nathan MacKinnon on his next deal is going to say, yeah, just pay me Mikko's number and I'll be happy. And you know what? If he does that, fine. I will never be happier in my life to have been wrong about that. But if I would much more expect Nathan MacKinnon to say, all right, I'm not going to ask for $15 million a year. I'll just give me McDavid's 12.5 and we'll call it a day. And yes, that'll be taking less. But so to put again, the cap number is going to become. You're going to have to deal with that in such a way that you're going to need to be a little bit more creative with the contracts you've got there. And if you're spending a couple million on fourth line centers instead of just your ELC contracts for your prospects filling those spots, obviously prospects that can handle the responsibility, you're not just going to throw in whoever's in there, then you may find yourself in some salary cap issues. But again, Bellemar's been really great. He's on pace to have some career highs this year. He's a guy that kind of came to the NHL late. His first years were just a few years ago, and he's 34 now. His career high seems to be 16 points. He's already got 10. So he's got his career highs coming to him. Hopefully, his career high in goals is 7. He may have, and this may not have been updated because it's off Hockey Reference. So it may, with his 2-goal game tonight, he may be up to 12 already. I'll have to double check that because I'm looking at Hockey Reference and some of their numbers are not immediately updated. Andre Burakovsky. This was kind of one of the shots they traded for him, and we're thinking, maybe this guy's just not producing as much as he could out in Washington. If we think that if we just give him a bigger role, he will be successful. And boy, has he rewarded the Avalanche with that. Because again, you talk about another guy who's coming in and putting up some career numbers. To this point, it's not Donskoy, sorry, we'll get to him. Berkey's career high, 38 points. He's already at 24. 38 points in 79 games. He's 24 points in 33. There is absolutely no reason to think he won't shatter his career highs. 17 goals is his career high. He's got 13. He has shown that he absolutely can be a scorer in the NHL. Not your top line guy, but he's a guy that can slide. He's certainly a top 6 player. He's played really well with Kadri. He's had moments where he's played with McKinnon and done really well, and he's shown some of his goals, some of his shots have been of the variety that makes you just sit back and go, did he legitimately just do that? Did he actually just holy cow, what a shot. And, that's got to feel real good for him. Jonas Donskoy, another guy, comes over UFA from the Sharks. Sort of a similar situation where the Avs said, we want to give him a bigger role. We think he can be more successful in a bigger role. And he's another guy that is on pace to set some career highs. Again, his career high in points last year with the Sharks was 37. He's already at 28 in 36 games. His career high in goals is 14. He's already got 13, including his first ever hat trick. I mean, what is Donskoy's? Fans got to love this guy. He's a super try-hard guy. Always out there, always in the dirty areas. It's been very, 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 very positive for Donskoy as well. He was a little banged up early, but managed to play through it really well. The big one, obviously, that has made everyone's mind explode was Valeri Nichushkin. Now, he's another one who, again, as far as looking at the way you are signing players and making room for your own assets and your team, not crazy about taking a shot on a guy who had scored 0 goals the previous season, when you could be trying to work in some of your prospects into that particular role that he would be doing. But that being said, Nichushkin has absolutely panned out. I didn't think he would even be remotely usable. I figured he would be a guy who got sent down to the AHL, would not be happy about it, would ask for his contract to be voided, and so he could go back to Russia. That was my honest expectation of what was going to happen with Valeri Nichushkin. And he has absolutely outdone himself. He's scored his 7th goal tonight. 7 goals. I mean, there was a time nobody expected him to score ever again, and now suddenly we've got a goal scorer in Valeri Nichushkin. It's unbelievable to see what he has done. And even before he was finally scoring goals, he was effective. He was playing strong, dirty minutes with the bottom 6. And he made a role for himself, and he earned himself a spot. He absolutely earned his place in this lineup right now. And you just got to look at him and go, you know what? Good on you, Nuke. You hope that maybe he's not a guy that sticks around in there, because again, you want. And I don't mean like this season. He's obviously got his spot in there this season. If for whatever reason he's not there at the end of the year, you're not expecting it to be because the Avs made a big move for a 3rd-line right winger or a 4th-line right winger that pushes him out of the lineup. You're just not hoping that that's what ends up happening. You just hope that, again, your hope is that over the next year and in the off season, people that are coming into up through your own system are just naturally taking that spot, because that's what you want. Your guys in your system should be taking spots. And, as much as the team looks good right now, that certainly has been a downfall for the Avalanche system. They do not develop their prospects very well beyond people they take in the first round or trade for. And that's something that's got to change. Another guy that you could view that you could definitely Kyle Rosen, who came in with the Kadri trade, hasn't played a ton of games, but the games he's played, he's looked solid. I wasn't sure why he got sent down as opposed to sending Lindholm back down, considering he had played well and seemed to have earned his time. That's another conversation. Rosen's done well, but then Pavel Francouz. Holy cow! You talk about a guy. This was his first year with the Avalanche organization last year. Come in, play in the AHL. Give us a reason. Show us that we have a reason to give you an NHL shot, and he did. And now he's into the NHL. Back up, gotten a few starts, won plenty of games. It's all about give us a reason to keep giving you starts. And he has done nothing but that. He has absolutely done nothing but play solidly and give the Avalanche no reason to sit there and go, can we afford to play our backup against this team? There is no questions at all that if it's time to give Grubauer a rest, or if Grubauer is injured, this team has the utmost confidence in Francouz to come in there, play well, and help them get a win. And he did it again tonight in Vegas. He's been absolutely outstanding for the team. A gem of a get from Joe Sakic there. You got to expect that he's going to earn himself another contract here, and hopefully expect that he doesn't go anywhere because you gotta hope that he's going to stick around. He's going to be one that's obviously going to be an interesting piece when it comes to expansion time for Seattle, because the Avs are going to have a few pieces. You think about a few years ago when Vegas came in there, they didn't want a damn person off the Avalanche. They took Calvin Pickard and then traded him away. They legitimately did not want anybody off of the Avalanche. And now that you look at this roster and you look at it and go, man, there's going to be some really good players that are going to have to be left vulnerable to this expansion draft, and Francouz is probably going to be one of them. Again, just going through all of that, you simply cannot say enough about what Joe Sakic has done. He has done outstandingly putting together this team. And like I said, if he's not already GM of the year, then you know what? They're doing it wrong, because 3 years ago, this is the third season since the 48-point season. Unbelievable. It blows your mind. So what do the Avs need going forward? First, this team has got to get healthy. Man, they've got to get healthy. Got to get this full team back. And it's going to be kind of good for them, because I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of a bumpy stretch in there, because it's almost like the start of the season again, because they haven't had the full team together for so long. It's almost like they're back in those first few weeks of finding the chemistry, finding the lines, finding what works, and then truly being able to identify what is it the team needs going forward to put them over the top. Because it's just the injuries have been such an issue, and when everybody gets back, it's almost like it's almost like a team could collectively exhale for a moment, and goes through a bit of a lull before getting back on their feet. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if that does happen. Or maybe it's already kind of happened in those last two games there. There was a little stretch there. The Avs didn't play great, but they still managed to win a few games, and they had their collapse, a couple collapses, and maybe they're ready to go, because Makar is scheduled to come back after Christmas here. But getting healthy has to be obviously your number one thing. Special teams has got to be your number two. The PK has been a little bit better of late, but there's still some obvious things that are issues here. There are three things that I always worry about with their current penalty kill. And when it's on, obviously they manage to deal with these pretty well, but it's kind of just the way their system works. I'm not crazy about it. I've never been crazy about this whole rotating diamond thing that seems to have come all over the place in the NHL nowadays. I just feel like there's just too many opportunities for guys to get confused about what they need to do and lead to some power play goals against. And it's a little rough for me. But again, what do I know? I'm just a guy with a microphone talking about it. But the three things that I always think about with this is the Avalanche occasionally can get overpassed, and not in the sense of like when the offense overpasses and they should be shooting, but when they get passed out of position, and it results in one of the two players that are on the wings, the wing points of the umbrellas of the power plays, that can just walk straight down, get a really quality shot, and you just have to hope that one defenseman who's there is able to block the shot. And if he doesn't block the shot, then you know what, he's screening the goalie, and it's not looking good for you. That happens way too much. The second one is they just allow a lot of seam passes. That has been better over the last week for sure. But get your sticks in the passing lanes, disrupt passes, get it out of the zone. The seam passes, when those are coming, that's not good for any penalty kill. And then the other one kind of comes again from the result of being able to get passed out of position or just following guys too low. Maybe they follow the half boards player a little too far down low, and then the puck comes back up to the quarterback of the power play, the D-man who's up on the top of the power play, and he's able to just walk straight down the middle and get a great shot, a great scoring opportunity. Again, you just have to hope that the guy's there to block the puck, but then there's always two or three other guys that are screening the goalie, and the goalie never really gets a good look at it. And the Avs, again, when the PK is running, they manage to deal with the responsibility well. But when it's not, man, it's scary. I've never been a huge fan of that diamond that they run, and I don't know. I feel like there's probably a better way, but if I was the one that knew it, I wouldn't be a high school teacher, would I? Power play also needs to improve. It's got to improve. It's great that they had 2 goals against Vegas tonight, but one was kind of the variety that Aaron talks about sometimes, where the power play is just going terribly, but then magically they just, out of nowhere they score. That was really Landy's thing, where it wasn't because the power play got set up. They had a good entrance, and then Landy would put a good shot on goal, and Fleury kind of let it leak through. The second one was just Plinko. Kind of overpassing from the Avalanche in this sense, the bad kind of overpassing, and he tried to get an extra fancy tip, but it double deflected off of 2 Vegas players and went in the net. I mean, you can't get much luckier than that, and you'll take it. Absolutely, you'll take it. But again, that's not a result of of a good power play happening. That's just it went in that time. They get a little predictable. They kind of just let it be those 3 guys, the point guy and then the 2 guys on the half boards, and they just sort of go back and forth between them. They don't utilize the pivot guy in the middle. They don't utilize the guy down low below the net, below the goal line, and they just sort of, there's no movement away from the puck, which allows the penalty kill to get aggressive because they don't have to worry about anybody moving into the open space that they've left open there. So it's just, there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen with those. So, yeah. I mean, and then the last one, again, is just, it kind of is along the lines here of those collapses. You got to avoid the turtle, because there is a difference between closing it out and shutting it down. And you've absolutely got to remember that. Closing it out is what you want to do. You want to close it out. You want to close the teams. You want to shut the door on the other team. That includes things like suffocating the neutral zone. That is still getting shots on goal in the offensive zone, spending time in the offensive zone. There's no way they're going to come tie the game if you're spending more time in the offensive zone. They did very well with that in Vegas tonight. There was a point about 6 minutes, I think, left in the third period, that they said the shots on goal were 10-2 for the Avalanche. And that is what you want. Keep the pressure. Keep the pressure on the opposing team. Keep your foot on their throat, and don't let up. Don't give them a moment to breathe. Suffocate them. Get them out. Make them tap out. If you're shutting it down, that's when the turtle happens. That's when you stop moving your feet. That's when you start watching. That's when you're just icing the puck all over the place. That's when you're just like, this is not enough time, right? And that's how you end up with Chicago. And that's how you end up with Carolina right there. And you cannot let that happen. So close it out. Don't shut it down. That's pretty much what I've got to say here. They've got the Avs have done very well. There's a lot of things you can do going forward. I put a bunch of stuff out here to some of the Avalanche faithful that I want to just read some responses to tonight, and we'll talk. We'll kind of close it out there. I've already overshot my expectations for myself here tonight, so yay on that. I'll try not to take up too much more of your time. We all know that I certainly know that it's much better when we have everybody here to talk around and you get multiple perspectives and things. So I'll put a bunch of questions out here. First one, of course, was if you have any questions or feelings of things that have been discussed. First one I got was from Joey, which is at Call Avs Num1 fan, at COLAVS Num1 fan. Frankie the number one now? Answer to that is very simple. No. It's still Gruby's team. Gruby's played well. He was in net for the two collapses. Neither of those are his fault. This is not the situation we saw last year, at least not yet, where neither he nor Varlamov could stop anything at all. You could have thrown a beach ball at him last year, and it wouldn't have mattered. No, absolutely not. This is definitely still Grubauer's team. That being said, I do still think you'll probably see Frankie get a few more starts, especially since Gruby's still kind of coming back from injury. Balance the loads a little bit more and maybe slightly more even, but this is not a situation where Grubauer has suddenly been supplanted. Absolutely not. Second thing I put out there was, what do you want from the Avs for Christmas? What can they do better? Jake says, hit less posts. Absolutely. Especially Cale Makar. When Cale Makar gets back, my God, that kid has hit so many posts. He could have so many more goals than he already does. And if he hits less posts, that'll be a good thing. Marcus at MWP8813 says, crisp passes, hit the net, and D-zone exits. I think with Cale Makar coming back, that's certainly going to help those D-zone exits 100%. And hitting the net, always a big thing. I think McKinnon's gone a couple games now without some goals, and he's been missing wide. But when he starts hitting the net again, he'll start racking those goals up again. Also, Nathan McKinnon, your Central Division All-Star captain for the second year in a row. Way to go, Mac Daddy. The Nate Dog. Crisp passes, always something you want from your team for Christmas or for any game for whatever you for. Do you think the Avs need to make a move to put them over? If so, who do you get? This one got a few more responses for sure. Let's see here. Danny at Utes Avs fan, my man Danny. Longtime follower and listener of the pod. Shout out, brother. Not a fan of the price, and I'll get shit for it, but Drouin. He'd be a nice addition for sure, but you're right. The price that's going to come for that, I wouldn't be a fan of that either, because that ain't going to come cheap, and that's going to cost you some roster players likely. So that is not a guy I would likely expect the Avalanche to get. Sean O'Connor, 77, another longtime follower and listener. Kreider probably / realistically. But if you want to think outside the box and get some value, Silverberg, Foligno, Hurdle, or Frolik, with Foligno being my first choice, is a first-rounder worth 1.5 years of play. Frolik seems to be a fit for the team with what they like to do. That's some interesting thinking for sure. I would be stunned if you could get San Jose to part with Hurdle. I would be stunned if you could get Columbus to part with Foligno. I think you may be onto something here with Silverberg, because Anaheim is not good. And, you might have to pay more than you'd want, but you could probably talk them into a pretty futures-heavy thing, since they're old and are going to need to be looking at rebuilding here, I think you might be onto something there with Silverberg. Brandon at Brandon Roy _ says Kreider, big body plus skill for the playoffs. I've become more of a fan of this idea. I know Aaron's big onto this. He loves him some Chris Kreider. Big body, good speed. He's not overly aged for sure. He's got some positives to him. He's got 10 goals this year, 21 points in 35 games on a not very good Rangers team. His possession metrics are not great this year. As a career, though, he's been on the right side of 50 for his Corsies. This might be the year that he goes, and I believe he's a pending UFA. So that would make sense for the Rangers to try to look to get rid of him and try to again get some value for that at the deadline or maybe before whenever that ends up happening. I've become more of a fan of that idea, and his size is certainly something that you like because if you're going anywhere in the playoffs, it is likely you're going to have to deal with the likes of St. Louis. And Kreider's a guy who could give you a little bit more size and strength without taking away from your speed and skill that is really the hallmark of the team. So I'm kind of coming around to that. Pajot, I've seen there's a few Pajots. The Jean-Gabriel Pajot. Certainly has some interest here this year. He, of course, had his big splash in the playoffs a couple years ago where he had that 4-goal game, including an OT winner. Having a good season this year on a not a very good Ottawa team, 16 goals, 10 assists. He's not the type I would think that would do much to put us over the top, if you ask me. He's always his underlying numbers are not great, possession-wise. He's not a guy that you'd come in, have him be, like solidify your top 10. He's basically the definition of a mid-max. He's pretty much the type of trades the Avs have done over the past couple of years with the likes of Brassard, and some other guys that they want to make a move to try to improve the team, but they're not going for it. Pajot would be the type of move you would make if you're not going for it. So that's my opinion anyways on Pajot. Not great. I mean, he's got some skill, he's got some speed, but he's another little guy that I don't think really helps you in the playoffs at that point. Because let's face it, the Avs, they're playoff bound this year. If they somehow do not make the playoffs this year, then that is a massive failure. I'm not thinking that's going to happen, but yeah. So Ken Mercer at KGMercer8 says if they want a defensive forward to help with the PK and some skill, then Pajot. I can see that if that's the role you still need help with, then that is a decent justification for Pajot. You probably wouldn't have to give up much in order to get it. If you want a top 6 forward with a decent 200-foot game, then you're talking about Palmieri. Kyle Palmieri from New Jersey, who is, of course, awful. The Devils, not Palmieri. Palmieri's been a guy who's been a legit goal scorer. He's been a 20-plus guy each of the last 4 years. He will be again this year. He's already got 14. He's a goal scorer. He had 30 in 2015-16. Again, he's not a big dude, 5'11", 185. He's a guy that could come in and help your second power play, though. That's for sure. And he's got some good speed. Hello, random. Good lordy. Thanks for that. My computer decided that I needed to hear this, that I needed to hear that advertisement right then. Palmieri's an interesting guy. I could see the Avs being interested in a guy like him. Again, is he the one that you want? Is he the thing that's going to push you over the top? If you think so, fine. If not, then you don't maybe necessarily go for that. They might be able to get him for a draft pick, or just a prospect and a lower level pick. But he's going to be a futures thing because again, Devils are a tire fire. Jeff Welch, he's in here a few times. At Welchy3319 says, I love Jost and all, but if you could replace him with Pajot, ooh boy, I kind of agree with that. Jost is a bit of a letdown once again this year. 96 Avalanche 01 says Drouin for sure. Pajot wouldn't fit the team. I don't know if he wouldn't fit with the team, but he certainly, like I said, I don't think he's the type that makes you significantly better. A little better, sure. Significantly over the top better, probably not. Playing first line minutes as Ottawa would be playing third, maybe second here. I agree with that. I don't think he even gets second line minutes here. Maybe on a game where he's just feeling it and Bednar wants to give him some extra minutes because he's feeling it. But other than that, yeah, I don't see that. Bit of a conversation going on there on that one. And I have to say I agree with 96 Avalanche here. Kaut is better. Greer, O'Connor, Bowers, all better. I don't know. Maybe not Greer. Maybe not Greer or O'Connor. Bowers, I would say, is definitely better. Wouldn't have to give up anyone. Pajot, Kreider, dark horse name, though. Timo Meier, Welchie is back. I tell you what. You kick those tires on Timo Meier. Again, that would be a friggin' miracle if the Avalanche managed to pull Timo Meier out of San Jose. And that would be a huge deal. And I would love Timo Meier on this team. That ain't going to happen. And again, Pajot, I'm not a fan of. Kreider, I'm more of a fan of. Tyler Toffoli, there's another name. I'm surprised it took a while for that one to come up. That's from Ashley Glover, at Ash_Glover_89. Toffoli's come around a lot of times on that. He doesn't have great size. He's basically Palmieri's size again. Less skill. Good speed. He's another kind of middle six guy. You're kind of mid-maxing with him. You get marginally better depending on what goes the other way. Is that what puts you over the top? I doubt it. But Toffoli could make you a little bit better, could give you a little bit more depth, and certainly good playoff experience. He's had a lot of good experience with the Kings before they fell off the planet. And then Marcus Pyatt at MWP8813 is back, says Jonathan Drouin, no doubt. Again, Drouin would be great, but again, that's going to be a big price. A lot of great answers there. I got a few other things that I asked. But before I go forward, a couple other guys that I am interested in. I talked about this team a lot as a good potential trade partner over the summer. The Detroit Red Wings. I know it makes everyone's skin crawl to think about being a trade partner with the Detroit Red Wings. But again, bad team. There's some bones to pick. And there's two guys that especially have interest. I have some interest in. Andreas Athanasiou. Great name, first of all. Good size, great skater, super fast, really good speed. Had a big year last year, hit 30 goals, has not had a good start to this year. And, of course, Detroit is just crap in general, so you gotta think that a change of venue might be a shot in the arm for him. And I would love to see what he could do as maybe, I know he's listed as a center. He could I'm sure he can play wing. I'd be really interested to see what he does there. Good size, good speed, has some finish to him. Again, his possession metrics give me a little bit of pause. They've never been very good, and certainly they aren't again this year. But I feel like, again, you put him in a better situation, put him with some better players, that could potentially change. The other one, and this is a guy I've come around on a little bit more in the past weeks, is Anthony Mantha, who is huge. Holy crap. Huge. 6'5", 234. Right wing, shoots left. Not been in the league for a long time. 2-time 20-goal scorer. Having a good year again this time, 12-12. Through 29 games. He is injured at the moment. Had a moment where he fell on his head recently. So he's on the IR. This would be a later in the year sort of thing. But you want to talk about a guy that's got some good skill, can score, and is going to give you the benefit of that size that you really want in the playoffs against a team that you're going to have to probably play like St. Louis or maybe not. Well, maybe not San Jose because they're They're not great right now, but they could. You never know. Wouldn't hurt you either. Again, when you have teams that you have to play a little faster against. Again, good size against a team maybe like Dallas, Winnipeg that you're going to have to potentially go through in the playoffs. I mean, your price might be a little higher than you would want, but I think you add a couple extra. Maybe you give them a little extra in the terms of draft picks, and that might help them, back off a current roster player and be satisfied with a futures style deal. I'd be really interested to see what the Avs could have in Anthony Mantha going forward. Those are a couple other names to look at here. Other one I had questions for everybody was, who is your top Av up to Christmas not named Nathan McKinnon? This one was a pretty consistent answer. There's a lot of Cale Makars. Makar, easy answer. Andrew D. Sethro109 says Makar. Daryl Gregoire says, at Avs for Life says, easy answer, Makar. But man, has Valeri impressed, of course, meaning Nichushkin. TJ Warren says Burakovsky, too much fun to watch, too much fun to watch. Steven at SF DeGraff says big giant Russian dude, either. Meaning Zadorov or Nichushkin. Calvert comes from John Reed. Dude has become a wrecking ball. Agreed. I've been really impressed with Calvert. Cale Makar, the fourth line combo, and Makar as a superstar. Nuke as depth. Good one from 96 Avalanche 01 there. Very nice. The next question. I mean, again, it'd be hard to really argue against any of those. They've all been very well, done very well. Which is again, Joe Sakic, GM of the year. I'm your hype man. Hire me. Biggest disappointment. I said the biggest revelation of the season to this point. Frank is a monster. Frankie has been great. Frankie, bunch of Frankies. Val Nichushkin comes up again. Guy's doing all the little things and embraced his role on the team. Works hard every game. He absolutely has. I'm with you, Ken. And then 96 Avalanche 01 again says Nuke and Big Z have been the biggest revelation. Z has really taken some great steps this year. I would love it if we would just stop with the benching of things, but that's another category, another discussion for another day. Biggest disappointment, if you have one at this point, and there's a few for sure. Andrew comes back with one of the easiest ones. At Sethro109 says Jost. Hard to argue. Last couple seasons has been sort of a prove it both years, and each year to this point, he's just not done it. He's had little stretches. Again, we're all really happy with the way he finished the year last year. Started the year pretty well, at least playing well. Had a couple good scoring stretches, but basically he scored in 3 games. Yeah, one of them he had a hat trick, but other than that, it hasn't been much. And yes, even though the process is going well, a lot of the time you've got to put something up on the board at some point. You can't just sit there and go process, and never put anything up. And I'm sorry, love him, but that's just kind of where he is. And pretty soon we may find that Tyson Jost is just kind of a thing of the past. Sad to say. Terry Secor says the loss of Barry and trying to have patience with Girard's development. We all love Tyson Barry, but it has been made a little easier, I think, by the emergence of Cale Makar. And I'm with you on Girard's development. The sheer number of injuries back from Danny Love, and though not very many times, the lack of effort sometimes. I agree that it's been a kind of a common theme with the team, and it has happened way less this year, which is great for sure. That sometimes the team just, for whatever reason, stops doing all the things that make them successful. When the team was bad, that was it was really difficult to watch because they'd play 5 games really well in a row. They'd win 3 maybe in a row, and then they'd just stop. We're successful now. We can stop. And then they'd lose 9, 10 in a row. It was just brutal to watch. That's how you end up with the 48-point seasons. Nowadays, it's not nearly as bad. And part of that is because they've gotten the right players in the right positions and the right types of players, and they don't let that stuff happen. But it's sometimes you can still kind of see it through. Steven says the over-reliance on Makar. I don't know that I necessarily personally see an over reliance on Makar, but when you got a young stud coming up like that, you let him feed, and he's got the legs, so you just let him. But I mean, I'm not sure I see that, but that's just me. Jake is back. Jake says Gerard. I agree. Got to agree with that. Gerard's has been a bit of a disappointment this year. More Joasts. John Reed says Jost. Joey is back, says Jost by far. Jeff Welch is back, says Jost and injuries. 96 Avalanche 01 is back and says Jost, JT, and Gerard. I haven't been super unhappy with JT. You'd love to see more contribution on the score sheet. Overall, I think he's been fine. Has he been as impactful as you would want him to be? Probably not. So I can give you that. Let's see, get through the rest of these. Last one I said was favorite holiday memory. I think I only got one on this one. Terry says, I don't go to many games, but I'm almost always there for New Year's Eve game. No better way to bring in the new year with friends, family, and Avs. The fireworks are a nice touch as well. Good call. Gotta love bringing in the new year with some hockey. I was given one other question, and I want to get back to it. It was from Welchie again, who asked, where'd he go? I think what do I think happened with Jost's development? I don't know. That might be one that I'll kind of I might put on the back burner until I've got everybody else with me. In short, I think they may have just brought him in too soon. He had a great year in North Dakota, his first year in college. Really strong, really great season, and jumped in. Played like 10 games at the end of that particular season. And I think the expectation was just that the Avalanche were going to not be very good, and that he would be able to kind of get the ice time he needed in order to develop. And maybe he just did not get quite the time to develop physically that he needed to. And maybe it just sort of overtook him. I don't know. It's a sheer guess. Because he has a lot of skill, and the other part of it may have just been that they simply overvalued him when they took him. That by taking him 10, they just took him at the wrong spot, and that it was almost like another situation where the Avs have had some very questionable first round draft picks in their history, and where you take a guy like, believe it or not, Scott Parker was a first-round draft pick for the Colorado Avalanche once upon a time, and you look at it and you just go, there's no way this guy should have been taken in the first round. No offense to the Sheriff, of course, but maybe Jost was more of you look at the guys like Connor Bleakley when he got taken by the Avalanche in the first round, probably shouldn't have gone at that point. And maybe there were some, hindsight's always 20/20. Obviously, you always see best when you know what the events are that occurred, and it's hard to project for sure. But Jost simply hasn't panned out into what the Avalanche expected him to be, or hoped he would be for sure. He certainly never took the reins of that 2C, and he got opportunities no matter what. Some people will try to tell you in the Avalanche Twitterverse, he got opportunities. Yes, he's had a mishmash of line mates. But you know what? Matt Duchene had a mishmash of line mates and played with 1,000 different people and still produced. And, say what you want about Duchene for sure, but Jost has not done enough. And it's almost to the point now where because again, production matters. Process matters too, but a process does not outweigh your production. And when you are not producing, that's how you end up on a fourth line. That's how you end up on a fourth line center. And if you think you're better than that and you deserve more than that, then you need to start putting the numbers up to do it. And Jost just hasn't done it. So, again, I've already I way overshot what I expected to do for this solo pod. Sorry that you had to sit here and just listen to me for the last hour and bit here, but I appreciate you taking the time to listen and contribute to the Burgundy Brigade podcast here. I'm your host at BRG Brigade, Kevin on Twitter. Next time you hear me, I will have the two voices that I adore to work with in Aaron and Callie. They will be back hopefully early in the new year. We're going to try to get an early January pod going here as well so that we can kind of get everyone else's contributions on a lot of the same topics that I talked about tonight. And it's just more entertaining. I always know it's always more entertaining for any style of any podcast, radio show, whatever, to have multiple people to chat with and see around here. So we'll get that back to you next time. I still think we had a good amount of stuff to talk about here, and enjoyed talking about it with you. So it is now into Christmas Eve Day here in Kaiser, Oregon, where I am podcasting from. So I'm certain it is into Christmas Eve Day wherever you are. So to you and yours, again, as I say, if you are celebrating the Christmas holiday, I wish you a very happy, merry, wonderful Christmas. If you are not celebrating Christmas, whatever you are to be celebrating, I hope that you celebrate it very well, surrounded by all of the best that you can possibly have, family, friends, good cheer, and all. Thanks for following along with the Burgundy Brigade podcast. We will see you out on the Twitterverse. Stay good, Avs Twitter. We will talk to you later.